Welcome to Darling Adventures. I'm Jenny Soloria, and today I'm going to show you how to make this quick and simple composition book cover. For this project, you're going to need your outside piece. I'm using a decorator weight fabric. Here, I've gone ahead and decorated mine with a reverse appliqué. Feel free to do ruffles or rosettes or maybe patchwork of some sort, but the finished piece and the matching interior piece will need to be 15 7/8 by 10 3/4. Then we need two pieces for our flaps. I've matched mine to the interior. These are 10 3/4 by 13 1/2. Then I have a 2 by 3 inch piece here that will be the pen holder, and I've made it match the cover instead of the inside. A ribbon that will be the bookmark, and that's 14 inches long, matching thread, and of course a composition book. Our first step is going to be to prepare the inside flaps. And what you're going to do is take one of your 13 1/2 by 10 3/4 pieces, fold it in half, wrong sides together, line up your edges, and I'm going to go ahead and press this. I've pressed a nice crease there, and I'm going to pin along that fold because I will be edge stitching this and putting a pretty little stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. So I'd like to pin it to make sure my fabric stays in place. Alright, so both of my edge pieces are finished. I have sewn an edge stitch here. It's about 1/8 of an inch away from the fold that we made. And I have back stitched at both ends, done my reverse stitches to lock that in place. And so I have both pieces ready. So next we want to prepare the pin loop. So I'm going to take my 2 inch by 3 inch piece of fabric, and I'm going to fold the short ends about 1/4 of an inch, and I want to press that. So I've set my hem gauge to 1/4 of an inch, and I'm going to use that to make sure I'm making a nice even fold. Now I want to sew these folds in place. To do that, I'm going to pin them first and then run them through the machine and stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. I've just finished sewing my pin loop. I've sewn about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, and I've left this raw because it won't be seen, and that will end up looking nice and neat. Now we're ready to sew all the pieces together. We're going to start with our cover. I'm going to place that on the mat face up. Then I'm going to find the center, and I'm going to pin my ribbon to the center. Okay, then next I'm going to place the pin loop, and it's going to go, this is the back and this is the front, so I'm going to want to attach it to the back piece. So I'm going to put it a couple inches down from the top, fold it in half, a couple inches down from the top, and pin that in place. Then I'm going to take one of my flap pieces, I'm going to line the raw edges up, making sure that my stitched side with the fold is towards the center. And the same on the other side. Then I'm going to take my lining piece, I'm going to place this right side down, line up all of the edges, and pin all the way around. What I want to do before I start sewing is I want to mark the corners. You'll see that with a composition book the corners are slightly curved, so I want to put that curve in there. So I'm going to be sewing 1/4 inch of a seam. So I'm just going to use this book, come about 1/4 inch from the sides, and mark the shape of that curve so that I can follow it when I'm sewing. And I'm going to do that to all 4 corners. Remembering that we need to leave a gap so that we can turn it right side out, I'm going to start I want the gap here on the bottom. I'm going to start maybe 3 or 4 inches up from this corner. I'm going to make a 1/4 inch seam, so I'm placing my fabric. I put the needle down using the hand wheel, lower the presser foot, make a few back stitches to lock this seam, and then I'm going to head towards the corner and remove pins as I go. Remember, at the corner we want to curve that corner around, so going very slowly and following that mark that I made, I'm going to spin as I stitch. Knowing that you're pulling the pins out before you sew over them, be careful when you come to that pin holding in the ribbon, because if you pull it out too soon, then your ribbon's going to come loose and you actually won't sew it into that seam, and we need to make sure we sew that ribbon. Okay, so I'm back to my first side, and knowing that I need to keep that gap open, I'm going to sew about 3 or 4 inches down and then reverse stitches to lock the seam in place. Before I turn this right side out, I want to go ahead and press all the seams and clip my corners. We're ready to turn this right side out. We're just going to reach into the gap and pull the corners and flip everything. At the corners, we're going to want to use our bamboo point turner and gently poke those corners out so they're nice and neat. Now we're ready to press our seams. And here at the gap, we're going to want to make sure that we turn that seam allowance in and press it flat. So we're ready to complete our final sewing step, which is to edge stitch all the way around. This is going to give a nice detail to the finished product, and it's also going to close that gap. So I'm going to pin all the way around because this is a big piece and I want to make sure it stays nice and neat as I'm sewing. So now I'm ready to sew an edge stitch, which is going to be a stitch that runs about 1/8 of an inch from the outer edge. All right, here at the ribbon, I want to make sure that as I'm sewing, I'm not accidentally sewing the ribbon down to a seam, so I just need to make sure I'm keeping it out of the way. So I finished sewing my edge stitch, and of course now I am pressing. The tricky part is going to be inserting the composition book because these flaps are so wide. Open your book and turn the cover back, and then you can insert and there you go. If you're like me and my sisters, you journal a lot, and this is a great way to personalize your journals, and it makes for a great gift. Visit darlingadventures.com for more sewing tutorials, videos, and ebooks. Thank you for watching, and may all your adventures be darling adventures.